there's a physics and a symmetry of the integrity effect where, you know, we've kind of gone in two directions. And we're still moving in two directions where we see an overemphasis on service to self that might be defined as self-centered, egocentric. We could even throw out the term narcissistic. And then we've got this whole other side of the pendulum, which is service to others, where, you know, we're here to be compassionate and we're here to support the progression of humanity. And in many cases, we leave ourselves out of the equation. And the physics of the integrity effect is it's equal service to self, equal service to others. The we experience recognizes that symmetry is important, and that if we don't love, honor, respect, and commit to being in a cohesive relationship with ourselves, then if there isn't compassion to ourselves, then we're going to fall short and not be able to sustain commitment to compassion to others. And so that's all interwoven in the integrity effect through testimonials from students, through even my own personal experiences. I get very vulnerable in the book and provide a multitude of access points for our readers to be able to discover the integrity effect for themselves, because that's really what it's about. It's about defining what integrity means to you from a framework of self-love.
Absolutely. Something I'm just thinking about here, I'm going to digress a little bit, is I think something that would be wonderful if you did with your book, or something to think about, is to come out with an audiobook version of it where you read it, because your voice carries so much energy on it, and when I read your books and I can hear your voice in my head saying the words, it is a much different experience than if I was just to read your books and read them cold without knowing what Melissa Joy sounds like.
Well, I'm so happy to hear this, and let me explain why I was laughing. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing with you. First of all, the first three books, M-Joy Practically Speaking, Little Book of Big Potentials, and Practical Play, The Heart-Centered Way, are all available in audiobook. And everyone has loved the audiobook because I'm narrating it, and they say it feels like I'm sitting in their living room and we're drinking tea and just having a conversation. So when I wrote The Integrity Effect, I actually wrote it with the intention that not only are we going to have a conversation, but it's going to be kind of an intimate conversation. And how do you get intimate? Well, you've kind of got to be vulnerable. And so that's why there's so many of my own experiences shared in the book, not because I wanted to write an autobiography, but because I wanted people to recognize that being vulnerable is not a weakness. It's actually a strength. But the reason I was laughing is that literally today, about 2 hours before the call, I had a meeting with my audio producer, and we scheduled the dates in July to record the audiobook, which will probably be out in September and October. So you must be clairvoyant, Dave, because you tracked it, because it's already in the works, and it'll be out later this year. And, you know, that's not an excuse to wait to get the audiobook. Obviously, buy the print book or the Kindle book. I have a number of free videos on the M-Joy YouTube channel, and tons of recorded webinars that are available on my website where my voice does come through. And the articulation of the language of light, you know, coupled with my obvious enthusiasm is definitely transferable. So that's available as well. But thanks for asking. Already done.
Sure.
Soon.
Well, I did notice in your book, too, that you made yourself quite vulnerable in terms of your life experiences, and I appreciate people who feel self-assured enough that they can come out and be honest and say, yeah, those things happened to me, they happened around me, this is what I think I learned from it, this is how I grew from it, these are the puzzles I had that the pieces didn't all come together until later. And I really appreciate books where people talk about, yeah, I'm not perfect. I didn't just come down to shoot and everything was handed to me and bingo, bango, bongo. I wrote the book and isn't that great? You've had your share of life experiences, some of which are troubling or disturbing, just like a lot of us have. And sometimes people lose that perspective when they see somebody that they perceive only in a limited, conversation.
Well, everybody has a story, and we really never know what's really going on in someone else's reality. It's so easy to say, oh, somebody's life is perfect, and yet not really know what they're internally struggling with. We never really know where someone else is in their movement, ever, even when things appear to look perfect. And so that's, appearances are quite deceiving to anyone that's perceiving. I am very fond of saying that. It's funny that you say I appreciate someone that is self-assured enough to share the stories, because I didn't feel self-assured when those stories got encoded in my book. In fact, I remember thinking, are you sure you want to do this? Because once it's out in print, there's no taking it back. And even if you try to pull a book from the market, well, there's all these, third-party vendors that will make sure that it's always going to chase you. And what I heard very clearly was, yes, because you're not your stories. You're not your experiences. These are things that occurred for you in your journey, but they certainly don't define you. Yes, they've given shape and given you perspectives around certain experiences, but you're so much more than that. And I really understood that's why it was important for me to put the experiences in there, not because of the experiences, but to model for readers that it doesn't really matter what the stories are, what the placeholders are, what the experiences are. We actually do all come in perfect. And then we move away from recognizing that through our programming, through our experiences, through our conditioning. And we can run stories that say, oh, our souls decided to have these challenges so that we could grow. But what if that's just a story? And what if we don't have to continue doing things the hard way? And if we do choose to continue doing things the hard way, that's a choice too. And so really the book is really about the freedom of choice, and is really about recognizing that no matter what has happened to us or what is happening now or what may happen, that nothing can take away our own innate awesomeness and our own innate completion, and that self-love really is our birthright, no matter how absent love may have been from our environment. And it doesn't matter what's happened to us. What really matters is how we choose to navigate from this point moving forward. And that's the heart of the teachings of Amjoy, and that's the heart of heart-centered awareness. Every experience that we ever have contributes to, I'll use your terminology, our spiritual evolution. And so many times we'll hear people talk about they got their enlightenment at this point in time in their life, or they're waking up, or they woke up. And I think that there are a series of successive moments throughout the course of our lifetime called every single experience that contributes to our evolution and to our awakening and to our embodying more of who we really are as we let go of what we really aren't. And who's to say what's going to contribute to that spiritual evolution, whether it's a divorce, losing a job, winning the lottery. I mean, they're all kind of the same thing in the spiritual soup of consciousness. It's our frame of reference around those experiences that encodes them as being so-called positive or negative. And that's something else that's really touched upon and articulated and play shopped throughout the Integrity Effect, as well as the live seminars, is occupying multiple frames of reference or multiple perspectives simultaneously, and being able to get to that space of grace that is a form of neutrality, where we don't get hooked into things, where we don't necessarily buy into these limiting notions of good and bad. They simply become experiences as patterns of information, as placeholders, and that's really quite liberating. And everything can become a placeholder. Everything that you're relating to in your life can be a placeholder, whether it's a problem or a condition or a disease or an opportunity or a possibility. All of it can serve as a springboard into the progression of the expression of your own infinite potential. And that's a really cool way to kind of cope with life and not let life beat you down. It can keep you inspired and empowered and always able to navigate, even if you don't know what to do. You're never stuck. You might perceive yourself as being stuck, but you never are.